to another segment of Movietone News. I'm your host, Barbara Rhodes, and today with us here we have a special guest, civil rights expert Martha Smith, as we analyze recent news all about the civil rights movement. Hi Martha, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you, Barbara.
Wow, hasn't this been an eventful year? The African American community has bravely spoken out about the civil rights movement. We've seen some strong leaders stepping up to the plate on the topic of civil injustices. Tell me, Martha, how did this all start?
All right, Barbara, starting with the brave act demonstrated by 42-year-old Rosa Parks, an African-American Alabama-born woman who refused to give up her bus seat to a white male.
For a number of years, the Negro passengers on the city bus lines of Montgomery have been humiliated, intimidated, and faced threats on this bus line.
As a response, the Negroes of Alabama, led by Martin Luther King, gave up the use of public buses in order to make a statement and push for change.
And all you audiences might be wondering, what was so brave about this boycott? Well, the boycott lasted 381 cool days. Thousands of black residents endured long walks through the streets in extreme weather conditions while ignoring all buses that passed them. Afro-American boycotters faced threats, death, and even violent attacks. Martin Luther King Jr.'s house got bombed, and he was jailed for 3 weeks.
Young 23-year-old Malcolm X took the nation by surprise and arose fear when he announced his belief in the use of violence to overcome racial oppression.
All right, okay, but what gives these people the strength to speak out about a subject that can possibly get them killed in today's society?
Well, Barbara, you can only imagine what these people go through. At the end, they are flesh and blood just like us. Just like everyone else in the Negro community, Malcolm X has experienced the pain and hurt as a result of the hardships that black men in our country face every day. As a matter of fact, Malcolm X's dad was murdered at the age of 4.
And these thoughts, these frustrations, these apprehensions automatically are sufficient to make these Negroes begin to form means and ways to protect themselves in case the police themselves get too far out of line.
Wow, so much criticism towards our government. He must have had so much anger and resentment towards the same people who were responsible for the racist Jim Crow laws, getting our society to becoming a segregated state.
Well, Martha, he is justified in this because without people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X uniting Afro-Americans, how's our nation ever going to overcome this hostile era? And while their methods of achieving that peace differs immensely, they both attained the same goal of African American liberation.
It's not hate to say that we were kidnapped and brought here, it's truth. It's not hate to say that we were Jim Crow, discriminated and segregated, it's truth. It's not hate to say that the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in this country, came up with a hypocritical desegregation decision 9 years ago, which they haven't enforced yet. That's not hate, that's truth.
On point, Barbara. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X had very opposing tactics to solving this issue. As a matter of fact, Malcolm X was not the biggest fan of Martin Luther King at all.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
At all. That's right. Martin Luther King preaches reaching this goal through acts of nonviolent resistance and peaceful protests. He resented violence and acquiescence.
Areas where the police, whether it be federal, state, or city, have proven their inability or their unwillingness to defend Negroes, the lives and the property of Negroes, then it's only intelligent and it's only right that Negroes protect themselves, and I have encouraged them to buy a rifle and a shotgun, which according to the Constitution is legal.
While King and Malcolm X share the belief that acquiescence will not create change, King believes that violence will not win the respect of others, and his community will continue to be oppressed unless shown the true meaning of brotherhood.
I feel that nonviolence, organized nonviolent resistance is the most powerful weapon that oppressed people can use in breaking loose from the bondage of oppression.
Now, the other method that one might use is that of resignation or acquiescence. But I think that is just as bad as violence, because non-cooperation with evil is as much a moral obligation as is cooperation with good.
On the other hand, Malcolm X's meaning of achievement derived from the teaching of Elijah Muhammad, a Nation of Islam leader that he met while serving a jail sentence. After his visit to Mecca,
which is a holy pilgrimage,
Malcolm X experienced the unity of all kinds of people like he's never witnessed here in the States.
I'm a Muslim. I believe in the religion of Islam, which believes in brotherhood, complete brotherhood of all people. But at the same time that I believe in this brotherhood, I don't believe in forcing my desire for brotherhood upon those who aren't willing to accept it.
Of course, I think the Christians would say that they also believed in brotherhood. What did you say to that?
I'd say they believe in it, but don't practice it.
Well, that'd be pretty good.
Well, this just shocked the whole nation, didn't it, Martha?
Of course it did. Malcolm X rose to the platform as a promoter of armed resistance and necessary aggression, completely contrary to Martin Luther King's philosophy.
I do believe that the black man in the United States and any human being, anywhere, is well within his right to do whatever is necessary, by any means necessary, to protect his life and property, especially in a country where the federal government itself has proven that it is either unable or unwilling to protect the lives and property of those human beings.
But they did have one thing in common, didn't they? And that thing is the unification of the black community towards a common goal. These resilient men said the thoughts of what struggling Afro-Americans were too scared to say out loud. Both leaders gave them and other African-American citizens a true voice that can be heard and followed nationwide.
Well, Barbara, I completely agree. But how does someone like Malcolm X gain a following, considering his views on the use of weapons to retaliate acts of racism?
Well, the Afro-American community grew tired of waiting for action, understandably, and strove for quicker and more immediate results. Opposers of Martin Luther King's methods believed that Malcolm X's tactics could speed up the process of desegregation and have a bigger impact on the movement.
I don't care whether it's a religious gospel, a political gospel, an economic gospel, or a social gospel. If it's not going to do something for you and me right here, right now, to hell with that gospel.
Just like our ancestors fight towards liberation from British tyranny that took over our country centuries ago, our fellow African Americans are fighting for their natural rights in society, where all odds are against them,
including the government and law.
We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other.
Thanks, folks, for watching, and don't forget to tune in on next week's segment of Movietone News, where we will be having some exciting updates. This has been your host, Barbara Rhodes, and our special guest,
Martha Smith.
And Tal, what is your stance on this issue? Do you agree with Martin Luther King Jr.
or Malcolm X?
Have a great day.
Are y'all ladies tired of just trying to cook a nice meal for your husband and spending all day washing dishes after?
Do you spend all your day cooking for your husband? Well, cooking can be stressful and us ladies get tired doing so. Worse yet, after we got all these dishes that we gotta do. Thank God, now we have a pan that can make washing dishes easier than ever. Introducing the all-new non-stick Teflon pan, the answer to all of your problems.
The sleek and iron handle is so easy to use and it makes cooking so much more comfortable. Matter of fact, even burned food won't stick to Teflon, so it's always easy to clean. After Teflon, you won't ever want to go back to using your old pans. And for a limited time offer, you can get not one, but 2 Teflon pans for the price of one. Teflon, nothing sticks to Happy Pan.
Welcome everybody. Hi. Nice to see you. Today we have a special episode of trivia. This one will be regarding Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Here with us we have a guest. Hi, how are you doing?
Hi folks, I'm pretty nervous. This is my first time on this kind of show. I hope I can answer these questions for you guys and create some entertainment today.
Do you mind telling me your name?
My name is Susie Johnson, and can I just say, you look more amazing in person than I've ever seen you on TV.
Why, thank you. That is so sweet of you. But now let's get on to the questions. You ready, folks? The first question is, what 3 ways of dealing with oppression does Martin Luther King Jr. identify?
Well, Barbara, I think that he's talking about acquiescing, nonviolent resistance, and physical violence, with nonviolent resistance being the best one.
All right, nice job. That one was indeed correct. The next question is, in King's view, what 3 qualities must a movement have in order to achieve the goal of integration? Let me see your thoughts.
Ooh, that's a toughie. I gotta think about that one. I think in MLK's view, I think the movement has to be nonviolent first of all. Second of all, a movement has to have the support of participants. And then lastly, it must be aggressive for the cause.
Your next question is, in lines 47 to 50 of the Necessary to Protect Ourselves from Malcolm X, identify the historical event that he is alluding to.
Ooh, well that's indeed a good question. I believe that in those lines, Malcolm X is referring to the tyranny of the Britons during the 1700s. I mean, he is kind of right. We're going through the same thing with our Afro-Americans.
Good job. Nice going. You've answered all the questions correctly so far. Now here's your next question. Let's get ready. Audience members, hold your horses because this one is a big one. What are the main differences between the 2 leaders? What beliefs, if any, do they have in common?
Ooh, that's some good tea. I believe that Martin Luther King and Malcolm X could not be any more different on their approaches to the civil rights movement. Firstly, Malcolm X believed that we need to use weapons at all times necessary, especially when the government came short, just like the New York vigilantes. On the other hand, Martin Luther King believed that nonviolent resistance was the key to winning the civil rights movement. He completely opposed Malcolm X on his views on the use of weapons.
Yes, indeed. Something that they had in common, Susie, was that they were trying to unite the black population to work for a common shared goal. Next question. Now, how does Malcolm X justify his criticisms of other civil rights leaders? Let me hear your thoughts.
Ooh, I see you. A Malcolm X question? All right. I think that Malcolm X believes that no one should be above criticism, and the highest of all people get around and criticize each other.
Say, when Malcolm X gained popularity, why did people start unfollowing Martin Luther King and start upbringing Malcolm X?
Well, Barbara, I do agree that Malcolm X was gaining some popularity. When he was gaining some popularity, a lot of the Americans during that time, they were getting so frustrated with the problems that were coming from Martin Luther King's tactics. They believed nothing was happening, especially because the boycott lasted over a year. They were getting so tired of no change happening.
Okay, what do y'all audiences think? Good? Bad? Well, I think that was a pretty good answer. Now let's move on to the next question. Say, what were the bad things about acquiescence, the bad things about violence, and why did King think that these two methods were not sustainable in overcoming this problem?
Well, Barbara, as we said before, Martin Luther King hated acquiescing, but he also hated physical violence. Firstly, he said acquiescing will not do anything. It's just like the slaves, accommodating being slaves and accepting that truth. On the other hand, he said that physical violence will create no change. It'll only cause more problems between the blacks and the whites. He believed, however, in the power of nonviolent resistance. He believes that will create very good change and will also create brotherhood between the white and black race.
That was good. But how did Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X's upbringings impact their beliefs in the best tactics that they can use to solving this issue?
Well, Barbara, if you think about it, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King's childhoods cannot have been any more different. Malcolm X grew up with no father and a mother who was working all the time to get them scraps of food to eat. On the other hand, Martin Luther King grew up with a loving family on the ranch on a farm. His dad was a preacher, and that's where he got his beliefs in peace, in nonviolence, and inequality between black and white people. That's why Malcolm X believed in the use of weapons to protect ourselves, because he was so angered by the murder of his dad, which is very understandable.
In what ways does each author respond directly to the events of the time?
Ooh, that's real toughy. Well, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X both did have things that they did to the movement which created a good cause. First of all, Martin Luther King led the Freedom Riders and the boycott that lasted 381 days. On the other hand, Malcolm X, while he did use some strict tactics, created change in the government because he called for real reform. He used threats, speeches, and the brotherhood to create change.
For being here, audience, this was Susie Johnson, and she answered these questions wonderfully. Thank you. Can I have a round of applause? And most of all, thank you to all of y'all for joining me on today's trivia episode. Y'all have a good night.